I'm Caden, here with my brother,
Cal,
and you're watching Eating W's.
eat the W.
That's a W. Let's eat one. Let's eat one. That's a W.
On today's episode of Eating W's, we have Callan's official 2026 NFL mock draft. Just as we talked about in yesterday's episode where we did mine, which if you haven't watched that yet, jump back and watch that one before you pop over to this video. But this is both of our first and final mock drafts. This is our true prediction for what will happen. Very predictive mock draft, a little bit of what we would do, but mostly what we think is going to happen. Super excited to jump into it. Quick disclaimer, I hope you all enjoyed the long episode yesterday. This one will probably be a little shorter. If you want to look a little bit more into what each position is, what each prospect is, and a little more deep dive into the prospect themselves as well as the pick, go check out the long episode yesterday. This one will probably be a little shorter just because we're, of course, focusing more on the pick, but hopefully you still enjoy it just the same. So without further ado, again, we will dive into this. Callan, take it away with number one.
And with the first overall pick, it's pretty consensus. It's Fernando Mendoza. Now, in my eyes, honestly, I think Mendoza is going to be a bust. But the Raiders seem to like him. Brady seems to like him. They signed Kirk Cousins. They only have Kirk Cousins.
Kirk Cousins called him his teammate in an interview.
Yes, so it's pretty official that Mendoza is the first overall pick, and I think he'll do all right for the Raiders. But he's not going to be my favorite quarterback. I didn't think he was that great in college. I think he has flaws, like a lot of these prospects do, but I think his are not going to transfer over to the NFL very well.
I think he's ironically very similar to Kirk Cousins, where he's going to get you playoff berths, he's going to get you winning seasons. I don't know if he's that guy that'll ever get you all the way there and get you that ring. But nonetheless, you got to take a swing on it.
Right. And moving on to the second overall pick, the New York Jets select Arvell Reese. Very similar to the start of yesterday's draft. So Arvell Reese, like I said, kind of the similar pick to last year's Giants draft pick, Jalen
Abdul Carter.
I keep getting
Jalen Carter was also there, so
yes. So it's not that off, but nonetheless, very similar type of player here. Very similar college career trajectory. So it'll be interesting to see if he has the same impact as the Giants' Abdul Carter, who had a good impact on the Giants' defense last year, and we'll see if Arvell Reese is able to make a similar type of impact for the Jets. And moving on to the third overall pick, I have the Arizona Cardinals staying put and picking David Bailey, the next edge rusher out of Texas Tech. And I like David Bailey here to the Cardinals, who need some edge rushing help. They haven't really had a strong edge rushing presence since Chandler Jones, and that's been a while now. So they need something to build on that defense and build around that defense. And I think David Bailey will be the great centerpiece for the Arizona Cardinals for years to come.
Yeah, not the pick I had in my mock draft, of course. I have them moving down. But nonetheless, a really good pick for them. I mean, they've had very little pass rush at all. And like you said, no true named pass rushers for a long time now. So you go get a guy that is your true dedicated pass rusher and can get to the quarterback for you.
And then moving on to the number 4 overall pick, I have the Tennessee Titans taking Jeremiah Love. The consensus pick here for the Titans. We had yesterday had the Commanders jumping up, but I don't have anyone jumping up here. I see Love falling right to the Titans, where I think he'll be a plug-and-play running back and a very early on favorite for Offensive Rookie of the Year.
Yeah, I think barring any crazy changes, this is probably going to be your top 4. Maybe you flip Reese and David Bailey if the Jets want David Bailey more, but I completely agree. These are probably the first 4 names you see come off the board right here. Jeremiah Love in Tennessee would be such an awesome, awesome thing to see. Just Cam Ward with his skill set, all those young receivers they have, a decent offensive line, and then a home run hitter like Jeremiah Love, as well as some third down good catching backs like Tony Pollard and Tajay Spear to move in there. That just is a really, really fun offense.
That's a solid running back around. And then moving on, I got the New York Giants with the 5th overall pick, and I have them taking Sonny Styles, the linebacker of Ohio State. I talked about last year how they take Abdul Carter and then move him to edge rusher. Now they take the inside linebacker, and now they have the inside linebacker, so they don't have to play Abdul Carter inside. They can keep him purely an edge rusher where he does his best work, and Sonny Styles does his best work as an inside linebacker patrolling the middle of that field.
Yeah, a true, maybe I'm just missing names, but I feel like a true elite off-ball linebacker is something that just Giants have never really had. They've had really top defenders. Of course, Lawrence Taylor's the first guy you think of. But one of those elite middle linebackers is something that I can't think of that they had, and just really fun for that defense because we talked about it a little bit yesterday, but this Giants team is a very young team that we both think could be very good in the long run.
Yes, and especially if they get that defense revamped. And then moving on to the number 6 overall pick, I have the Cleveland Browns selecting Francis Mauigoa, the top offensive tackle in the NFL draft. And it fits one of their top needs is offensive tackle. So I think that is just a best player available, fits top position need. And I think that he fits well right there in Cleveland, where he'll be a plug-and-play offensive tackle right away, where he can dominate that left side the way that Myles Garrett dominates the other side of the defense. And I think that if you get a strong offensive line, you could really see how good Shadur Sanders really could be.
Yeah, this is a fun pick. I don't overly love it just because I think that they want to find some guy who's a little more dedicated to that left tackle position. But I mean, Francis Mauigoa overall is my top offensive lineman in my head. I think he's the top offensive lineman in the draft. And he's a guy that you can keep at right tackle. You can throw him over to left tackle and see what he can do over there. Or maybe let him fill in at guard if it really doesn't work out as a tackle. And he's going to be willing and nasty in that run game for you no matter where he plays.
Yeah, he's going to be a good offensive tackle. And then moving on to the number 7 overall pick, I have the first surprise of the draft, with the Washington Commanders selecting Mansour Delaney, the top cornerback in the draft. Now, they just released Marcus Lattimore after trading for him just 2 years previous. So they need a cornerback to come in and play right away. And the history of LSU cornerbacks has been good, and it's been impactful, and it's been instant. And I think that they're able to draft and plug and play Mansour Delaney right away on that defensive backfield. I think he'll end up being a star for the Commanders.
That's fun. I really like it. Haven't really thought of this one. But yeah, that Commanders defense is so bad overall and was so bad last year. And even got, I mean, not much worse, but got even a little worse when they cut Marshawn Lattimore. So it's pretty much close your eyes and throw a dart at a dartboard. They get one of the best defensive players left on the board right now, right here with Mansour Delaney.
And moving on to the number 8 overall pick is this New Orleans Saints selecting Carnell Tate, the wide receiver of Ohio State. And they match him up with fellow Ohio State wide receiver Chris Olave, where they double dip on the well of Ohio State wide receivers because, well, it's productive and it works out well. So for young, is it Tyler Show?
Show or Shuck?
Shuck, yeah.
I can't remember how it's pronounced. I usually say Show, but
even though they're probably a team that's looking towards the 2027 quarterback draft, they'll have at least a young quarterback to play with this year, and he'll need some offensive weapons to throw to. And then even if they do select a quarterback in 2027, they'll have an experienced group of wide receivers and running backs. A young and experienced group of running backs for whoever that 27 draft pick quarterback could be.
Yeah, for sure. When I can't remember how to say their quarterback's name, I always just say Shuck it. And I just give up and I say whatever I think. But nonetheless, I have the same idea in my mock draft. Not the same pick, not the same position, or not the same number position-wise. But I think that picking up a receiver is a huge plus for the Saints.
And moving on to the number 9 is the Kansas City Chiefs, who select safety Caleb Downs, where they don't really need safety help for the Chiefs, but they take the best player available, and that is Caleb Downs, and they will find a way to get him on the field and get him in a spot where he can be by the ball. Because Steve Spagnuolo is still their defensive coordinator, if I'm not mistaken, and he has been their coordinator for a long time. He's a Super Bowl winning coordinator, and he will figure out how to get downs on the field and how to get them on the field in the right spot at the right time.
Yeah, I like it. Almost any team in the NFL right now could benefit from taking Caleb Downs. I mean, he's just so versatile with the way you can play him. He's such a blue chip prospect. The only thing holding him back is just that positional value of safety. So anywhere from like 5 to 15 is where Caleb Downs can go. He has such a huge range, but I think right here, pretty much falling right in the middle into a Kansas City Chiefs team is dangerous.
And then moving on, the 10th overall pick is the Cincinnati Bengals, and they select Ruben Bain Jr., the edge rusher out of Miami. And I expect them to take Ruben Bain because, while they have a history of taking players with baggage, and they have done well with those players with baggage. When you think of Vontez Burfict, Chad Ochocinco. So they've done well with these players with troubled past and made them into stars. And I think they take Ruben Bain here, who falls a little bit because of those prior incidents that happened. We talked about a little bit about that yesterday. But I think because of those, he falls a little bit, and I think he gets no further than 10 at the Cincinnati Bengals.
Yeah, I like it. And if you look at what the Bengals have drafted before, they like these more 4-3 defensive end edge rushers, bigger guys. Sam Hubbard, Trey Hendrickson, those have been kind of their bread and butter defensive end edge rushers, and Ruben Bain fits that perfectly.
And moving on to the number 11 overall pick is the Miami Dolphins with Mekhi Lemon, the wide receiver at USC. And I expect Mekhi to go pretty high in this draft. I think that he's going to be one of the best wide receivers that come out of this draft, even though he is kind of a more prototypical slot wide receiver because of his size. But I think he still is going to be able to make an immediate impact in the NFL. And the Miami Dolphins need wide receivers, and they get one of the best ones available in the NFL draft with Mekhi Lemon, who I think has instant chemistry with Malik Willis.
Yeah, you can take a risk by taking a primary slot wide receiver in the draft when you don't really have a bona fide wide receiver on your team, which is the exact situation here for the Miami Dolphins. Jalen Tolbert, who I actually think is going to be really good on that team and is going to end up being their number one, is a little bit more of a bigger body boundary receiver. So get a perfect slot receiver to match with him.
And then moving on to the number 12 overall pick is the Dallas Cowboys. And they go with Jermod McCoy, the cornerback out of Tennessee. Now, like I said, I didn't know a whole lot about Jermod McCoy, but I know that he's a very raw prospect, injury prone, but one of the top corners looked at in last year's draft. And then, if not for injury, probably one of the top corners in this year's draft. But because he missed last year, he falls a little bit. And I think he falls to a perfect situation in the Cowboys where maybe he doesn't play right away because of Deron Bland coming back. But I think that they're able to make sure that he's healthy and get him on the field when it's right.
Yeah, small correction, I guess, for lack of a better term. Jerrod McCoy isn't really injury prone. He did just have one injury. The bad part about it is it was a major injury late in 2024.
Right.
So this guy has not played one snap of a live football game in 2025. So there's your big reason for his drop right here. But if you look back at 2024 and look at what he did in his pro day, I think that he really should be a top 10 pick and really the top cornerback on the board. He is the top cornerback on the board, in my opinion. But, of course, when you have that risk of taking a guy who hasn't played football in a year, he's going to drop. And ironically, same situation as what happened earlier with the Saints. We, again, have the Cowboys taking the same position, just a different person at a different spot. But no, I really like this pick, and I am a huge, huge Jermod McCoy fan.
And then moving on, as I have another surprise here, the LA Rams select Kenyon Sadiq, the tight end out of Oregon. And I said yesterday that teams have been working him out at wide receiver, and I think that he's going to fit perfectly as that third wide receiver for the LA Rams, who have Puka Nacua and Devontae Adams on the outside. And then I think that he's going to be that big-bodied wide receiver, and where he can be on the inline of the tight end or in that slot role. And I think that he's going to dominate for the Rams.
Oh, I've seen this scarcely, just a little bit, but I absolutely love this. You look at the Rams, who played so much 13 personnel, which is one wide receiver, three tight ends on the field at the same team last year, and found so much success in it. This is such a fun chess piece to add into that formation. And whether you want to call him a tight end or whether you do want to call him a wide receiver, I think he finds most of his time in the slot. Whether in the slot or if you do want to kind of risk him and move him on that inline, he's not the best blocker, but a very willing blocker. So that's kind of a nice swing for him. Is maybe he won't be the best inline, but he's at least going to try, and he's going to kind of do the dirty work as much as he's able to. So I really, really like this pick for the Rams.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a good one. And then for the number 14 overall pick for the Baltimore Ravens, I have Olavega Ione, the offensive guard out of Penn State. And I think that's the same pick that we had for the Ravens yesterday.
Correct.
So that, like I said yesterday, they need interior offensive line help. They take the best actual interior offensive lineman available, and that is Ione out of Penn State. And I think that he's going to be a plug-and-play offensive guard, whether that's left or right, and he'll fit right in with the Baltimore Ravens.
As you know from yesterday, I could not agree more.
And at the number 15 spot, I have my first trade. I have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers trading with the Philadelphia Eagles.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So the Eagles, it was 15, 23, and 68 and 98.
68 and 98. Okay.
And then 155. Or maybe it was 98 and 114.
I don't know. We'll run with this. Whatever gets us the green bar.
Yep, there we go. So I have the Eagles trading up for an offensive lineman. As we talked about last year, they draft and develop offensive linemen. So I have them taking the top offensive lineman available, and Spencer Fano, the offensive tackle out of Utah, where I talked about him being similar to Elton Jenkins, where he played tackle at college, is looked at as a guard in the NFL, but can play anywhere. And I think that he'll be a jack of all trades offensive lineman for the Eagles, where he'll play spotty starts anywhere he's needed along the offensive line, and eventually settle into that right tackle spot once Lane Johnson retires.
Yeah, I really like this. I really like the versatility and skill set of Spencer Fano. I think that 15 is actually a slide for him. I think he ends up going higher than this. But if he does fall to here, I could easily see a team like the Eagles jumping up to secure him.
And then moving on to number 16 is New York Jets with their second first-round pick. I have them taking a wide receiver that they need, and that is Jordan Tyson out of Arizona State. And we talked a little bit about Jordan Tyson yesterday to the Jets. In yesterday's draft, he kind of went over Mekhi Lemon. This time, there's no other wide receiver really to pick. He's the next best one available, and he fits position need for the Jets, and he fits the best player available also, and that is wide receiver for the Jets, who team him up with Garrett Wilson to make a nice wide receiver duo. And who knows, maybe the Jets will surprise some people this year.
Yeah, I really like this. I like this for the Jets the same reason I like Arvell Reese. This is not a win-now team, so you can take a risk on upside. A lot of people I've heard say that Jordan Tyson is actually even better than Carnell Tate. You just take all that baggage and injury risk with him. So for the Jets, you can take a swing, and if he gets injured year one, you can wait and see what he does year two. But if he comes out and is just an instant star and is able to stay healthy, then now you just get an absolute steal of the top wide receiver in the class at 16.
Yep. And then moving on to number 17 of the Detroit Lions, I have them taking the top offensive tackle left, and that is Monroe Freeling. Another similar pick to yesterday, where the Lions picked Monroe Freeling out of Georgia, the top and most athletic offensive tackle, probably the most raw prospect, because he's a Georgia prospect. You know, they're those athletic raw guys, and they love putting them in the NFL. And then maybe he doesn't start right away, and maybe he's another guy who has to draft and develop. But I think he'll eventually start on the offensive line for the Lions and be a star for them.
Yeah, it's their only big need. So the Lions picking up any left tackle is just a win for them. So to get a guy like Monroe Freeling that has the upside to possibly be a top 10 pick at 17, it's just a steal.
Yeah. And then at 18 is the Minnesota Vikings. And I have them taking the consensus pick of Dylan Thieneman, where they need a safety now that Harrison Smith has finally retired. He's maybe not the greatest safety. They've had options of getting better ones in previous drafts, but they finally actually really need one this time, and they take the top one available, and that is Oregon's Dylan Thieneman.
I talked about it yesterday. I really like Dylan Thieneman. He brings an aspect to the game that's super invaluable of being able to be rangy as that cover one safety. But I just don't like him for the Vikings. There's so many better safety prospects that we could have taken the last couple of years and absolutely passed up on, that it's going to kill me if we finally use a first round pick on a safety and it's this guy. But every time I haven't liked a first round pick from the Vikings, he ended up being an absolute stud. So
Yeah.
hopefully history repeats itself if this happens.
And then moving on to number 19 overall is the Carolina Panthers with Caden Proctor, the offensive tackle out of Alabama. And this fits another team need where they need offensive line help. And he's one of the top ones left available. Probably looked at as one of the top prospects last year. He kind of had not a bad season, but a more declined senior season. He had the flip flop from Alabama to Iowa, which didn't look good. And then once, because he didn't want to play without Nick Saban.
Oh,
so he flipped to Iowa and then went to Caitlin Clark games. That was when Caitlin Clark was there. Went to her games. Once she left, he went back to Alabama.
I shouldn't even know that.
Yeah.
I'm an Iowa fan.
Yeah,
I feel like I should.
He was only a Hawkeye for like 2 months. But so that didn't look good, just in NFL circles, just the flip-flopping there. But nonetheless, he's a very talented, very athletic offensive lineman, a very heavy offensive lineman. Probably fits more at guard in the NFL, but can play tackle.
Yeah, there's a lot of weird question marks surrounding this guy, just like not your typical things that make you question it. Like effort is kind of a question that I've seen, and how football savvy he actually is a question mark that I've seen around him. But he's too much of a physical specimen to pass up on. Yep.
And at number 20, I have the Dallas Cowboys selecting Akeem Mesidor, the edge rusher out of Miami. And we talked about this yesterday, how you trade an edge rusher to draft an edge rusher, and they take the one with the highest floor in Akeem Mesidor. And because of his age, he has the highest floor. He has the most experience playing football, and probably of all the draft prospects this year. So you take someone who is pro ready and ready to plug and play day one, and I think he'll make an immediate impact along the Dallas Cowboys defensive line.
Again, I could not agree more.
Yeah. And at number 21, I have the Pittsburgh Steelers staying put and rebuilding that defense and taking safety Emmanuel McNeil-Warren out of Toledo. Now, the Steelers have liked to take first-round safeties in the past. Look at Minkah Fitzpatrick. And even though he's not there anymore, they take someone who's similar in that style. And I think that they value McNeil-Warren a lot higher than other teams do, where I've seen him as a second to third round pick. But because of the Pittsburgh Steelers' needs on defense, I think that he is selected here because he fits in that Pittsburgh Steelers defense a lot better than most teams.
This guy is such an interesting prospect this year. I mean, at the start of the draft cycle, right in the start of the offseason, he was a second to third round guy. Then all of a sudden, recently, about literally just like a month, 2-3 weeks ago, he was this middle of first round into first round guy. Now I see him falling out of the first round a bunch again. No one can really make up their mind on him, which makes sense for a non-power conference guy with him coming from Toledo. But he's got the physical attributes. He's got some range to him, and he's just a heat-seeking missile when he needs to come down and help and run support in short pass catches. So I'm not a huge fan of him. Spoiler, if you haven't watched ours, he's not in my first round, but I don't think he's a bad player by any means.
Yeah. And then moving on to number 22, I have the LA Chargers staying put and selecting fan favorite Keldrick Falk out of Auburn, where they need some edge rushing help, not necessarily immediately because they still have Khalil Mack, but Khalil Mack is getting up there in age. So they need someone waiting in the wing to kind of take over that edge rushing role. And then Keldrick Falk doesn't have to play right away. He can sit and develop and become a star edge rusher under Khalil Mack once Khalil Mack decides to retire.
You don't need to hear me gush about him again, but I love Kendrick Falk. I think this is even lower than he'll end up going. In my opinion, he should be more of a top 15 guy, but a lot of people don't have him anywhere near that, if in the first round at all. So I think 22 is a very possible spot for him to fall.
And then at number 23, we have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers off their trade to the Eagles. At number 23, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers select defensive tackle Caden McDonald, where they need some interior defensive line help. And then they take, in their eyes, the best one available. And then he's been a star at Ohio State for the last couple of years. And he's been looked at as a first-round pick for quite a while. Not anything flashy. He's just a solid football player. And does the dirty work along the defensive line, has a little bit of pass rushing ability, and I think that he'll fit in perfectly for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
This guy is absolutely huge. He is the definition of a space eater. 6'2", 326, but 326 does not do this guy justice. He's so good in the run game, offers some upside as a pass rusher. The only thing that makes me hesitate about this placement is the fact that they already have Vita Vea.
Yes.
But with them running a 3-4, you get two run stuffers like this as your 1 tech and your 3 tech. And all of a sudden, you don't have to worry about the run game near as much as a 3-4. Usually when you have a 3-4 defense, only 3 linemen, you got to bring up some safety help or more likely some linebacker help. But with two guys like Vita Vea and Caden McDonald in there, they don't need no help. No. they can stop the run game themselves.
And moving on to number 24 overall, the Cleveland Browns select wide receiver Omar Cooper Jr. out of Indiana, who I think is one of the top wide receivers left available. The Browns need some wide receiver help to give some weapons to Shadur Sanders because they are starting to build that offensive line with Francis Mauigoa early on in the draft. And now they look for some offensive firepower with some wide receiver help in Omar Cooper Jr., who was a stud at Indiana and a possible dual first-round pick with other wide receiver Elijah Surratt. But we'll see if he falls anywhere in the first round in these last few picks.
I actually really like this. You get everything you need from a receiver corps with this pick. You get your big body guy in Cedric Tillman. You get your smaller straight line burner with Isaiah Bond. And then now you get your short throw yak guy here with Omar Cooper Jr. Really like this for the Browns.
And moving on to the number 25 overall pick is the Chicago Bears with Peter Woods, the defensive tackle out of Clemson. And I have defensive tackle as the Bears' top need. So they needed the best one available, and they take Peter Woods, who was looked at as a first-round prospect last year. So he had a solid 2025 campaign, and I think that he maintained his first-round pick status. I think that he's going to be a fine pick and a fine player for whoever gets him. And I think that if the Bears get him, he'll fit in perfectly.
Yeah, the big thing with Peter Woods, kind of the reason for his fall is injuries. He has a pretty major foot injury as well as some other lower body injuries, which with a guy who's 320 plus pound, that much weight coming down on your lower body 24/7, you don't love to see those lower body injuries. So it's going to be a lot more nagging for a defensive tackle compared to a receiver, quarterback, or running back. But nonetheless, if he can stay healthy and stay away from those injury bugs, he is so worth a 25 pick.
And moving on to the Buffalo Bills at number 26, I have them taking Casey Concepcion, who we talked about yesterday, how he's going to fit perfectly in that Josh Allen offense because of the way he was throwing deep verticals to Brandon Cooks. Now he's going to be throwing them to Concepcion, who's a little bit younger than Brandon Cooks and maybe not as much experience, but I think that he's going to have some really good chemistry with Josh Allen, and he's going to make some big plays for the Buffalo Bills.
Yeah, I absolutely love this pick. The only downside with Concepcion is you have some question about the hands, but not all the time, but sometimes catching issues and drops issues can get fixed with some NFL coaching and just sit in front of that jugs machine, getting football slinged at you. Sometimes that's all you need to fix it.
And then at number 27 overall, I have the San Francisco 49ers selecting Caleb Lomu, the offensive tackle out of Utah. And we talked about how Utah had one of the top offensive lines last year, and it was anchored by these two offensive tackles. Lomu is the more pure tackle compared to, I can't believe I forgot the other one's name. The other offensive, Spencer Fano. I forgot his name. Compared to him, who's more versatile, but whereas Lomu is more set in a one position, but I think that he's going to fit at either offensive tackle spot for the 49ers great because they need the offensive line help. And they got Brock Purdy got beat up and injured last year, and they had to play a lot of Mac Jones. And I don't think they want to play a lot of Mac Jones this year just because they've had to pay Purdy so much money. So I think that they rebuild that offensive line to help protect Brock Purdy.
100%. I love it. I don't know how you haven't replaced Trent Williams already just because of age and injury, but nonetheless, they finally do it here.
And then at number 28, I have the Houston Texans. And, they need some interior offensive line help, but there wasn't so many interior offensive line you can get second, third round. So I have them trading here. I have them trading to the Dallas Cowboys, who come up for a third first-round pick. They trade basically the rest of their draft to come up. It's 92 and 112 and 152.
92 to 28, that's such a jump.
Exactly.
I didn't realize they didn't have a second round.
They don't. So they have to come up and trade the rest of their picks. And they come up and they select Colton Hood, the team with Jermon McCoy, who finally get to make that Tennessee Volunteer defensive backfield that they dreamed of last year. It gets to happen in Dallas, where they rebuild that defensive backfield with a couple of Tennessee defensive backs. You team them up with Deron Bland, and now you got a very, very dangerous defensive backfield led by a three-headed monster.
Oh, I'm at the bottom of that. I couldn't figure out why it wouldn't let me scroll further. I'm at pick 32. But no, I don't know how likely it is, but I actually love it. That's so funny getting the Tennessee guys back together. And not like completely out of the world. I mean, they did pay Deron Bland, but he was very questionable last year, both play-wise and availability-wise. So maybe you just go get two boundary corners, especially considering Deron Bland is more of a slot guy anyways. So let him just sit in the slot and not try to push him to the boundary like you had to last year. Get your boundary guys, let them lock down the outside, and then just let Deron Bland do his thing and get you 6 pick six.
Yeah.
6 pick sixes
off
in a
of
year.
The slot.
Yeah.
Yeah. If it happens, I'll be pretty excited if Dallas
hilarious.
comes up for a third first-round pick, no matter who it is. And then moving on to number 29, the Kansas City Chiefs select Denzel Boston, the wide receiver out of Washington. And I think that they need to get some more firepower in there for Patrick Mahomes. And they did lose Sky Moore last year. And then obviously Rashee Rice was missing at times. And then so I think that they need another first-round wide receiver to go in there and take over and help Patrick Mahomes rebuild that magic and chemistry that he has with his wide receivers downfield. And then with Travis Kelce on the kind of tail end of his career, he doesn't have to play as much if they play more 3 and 4 wide receiver sets.
Yeah, I mean, the closest thing, unless I'm missing somebody, the closest thing that the Chiefs have to a big body wide receiver right now is Travis Kelce or maybe Noah Gray at that backup tight end position. So you get one of the better big body wide receivers in the draft right now with Denzel Boston.
And then at number 30, I have the Miami Dolphins selecting Avion Terrell, the cornerback out of Clemson. Earlier in this draft, they were able to draft Mekhi Lemon and fill that wide receiver hole. Now they take their second team need and draft the top corner available with Avion Terrell, who had a very solid 2025 campaign. He's not the top corner in this draft, but definitely a first-round talent. And I think that he'll plug and play right away in Miami.
Yeah, he's a little on the smaller end, but God, he's so scrappy. I didn't have him in my first round, but I actually truly, really do like Avion Terrell. So I would love to see him pop into the first round here.
Mm-hmm. And at number 31, I have the New England Patriots selecting Zion Young, the edge rusher out of Missouri, where I think that Zion Young fits perfectly here in the 30s because he's that edge rusher that's a raw, talented, but raw prospect. And I think that he'll sit on the New England Patriots bench and they'll draft and develop him. They'll play him in spots when they need him and spots where he can be successful and then eventually give him more of a role.
Yeah, a bigger body pass rusher, whether Zion Young, maybe TJ Parker, if you prefer him to move him into the first round. But no matter what, a big body edge rusher is perfect and great for what the Patriots need right now.
And with the last pick, the 32nd overall, the Seattle Seahawks select Chris Johnson, not the running back, the cornerback out of San Diego State. And I think that they need to, because of they lost Tariq Woolen, they need to rebuild some of that defensive back room. And even though they do have Devon Witherspoon, they need depth behind him. And I think that they draft Chris Johnson for depth because he's one of the tall, lanky defensive backs that's available. And I think that he'll fit in the Seattle backfield perfectly.
Yeah, I don't know a ton about Chris Johnson. Haven't seen much on him, but I do know that he is shooting up draft boards with experts right now. A lot of mock drafts I've seen him in all of a sudden, and spot on, like you said, he's a great Tariq Woolen replacement because he's got that same tall, lanky sprinter type build, and it's great with, even when he does get beat, making up space in that closing time that he has is really, really elite. Awesome.
And that's it.
Well, then, yeah, that is Callan's 2026 mock draft prediction. Lots of fun on this one. Cowboys having 3 first-round picks. The more I think about it, becomes more and more likely. It's just such a Jerry Jones move.
It is. He's going to do it in this draft,
to pick one
not
of the
next year.
Consensus weaker draft classes that we've had in a long time and be like, let's invest everything in this draft class right here, right now. Absolutely hilarious. But something the Cowboys would do, and it would not even surprise me. So really, really like it. So that is our conclusion and each of our final predictions for the 2026 NFL Draft. As I mentioned in the last episode, we are filming this on Thursday night, so we are exactly 1 week away. Hopefully no big trades or new things come out. I don't really think it will. I feel like the week before the draft is kind of your calm before the storm, and then draft night is when everything gets crazy. So I'd imagine we're good there. But nonetheless, thank you all so much for watching. It's been a while, so happy we could bring back 2 longer, super fun videos here. 2 of my favorite videos of the whole year. I just love the draft cycle so much, and doing a mock draft. Had so much fun with these episodes. Don't know when we will be back. Not sure exactly what we're going to do post-draft reaction-wise, off-season-wise. But nonetheless, we will most definitely be back eventually. So until then, don't forget
to eat the W.